Film by Dibakar Banerjee, Khosla Ka Ghosla. Even if you haven't seen the film, the Anupam Kher starrer, then you might remember, you might be familiar with one song from the film, at least one song, which is like its theme song. And that was a bit like written by Jaideep Sani. ये दुनिया ऊट पटांगा किथे लड़ते किथे डांगा. That means ये दुनिया ऊट पटांग है, उल्टी सीधी है. You don't know what happens. So the stories I tell you today are in that category. They are in that dunya oot patanga category. India, any country in the world, any economy in the world, you can make a very large graveyard of airlines, because airline business is a highly perishable business. There is the old story that, how to become a millionaire in no time, start as a billionaire and set up an airline. So forget that. I mean, that is one piece of wisdom that's gone on for a long time, rarely proven wrong. Right? And you have many cases in your country. There is Vijay Mallya, there is Naresh Goyal. These were flying high. Then, sort of like Icarus, they flew too high and had their wings burnt. And since then have been bankrupted, been in all kinds of legal troubles and things, and their airlines shut down. Now again, if you see the history of India, in India, Vayudu, Deccan Airline, Sahara, Kingfisher, Modi Luft, NEPC, Paramount, East West, these are all the airlines that shut down in our times. In our times means since private airlines were allowed in India. Vayudu, in fact, was a public sector airline, a rare public sector company to shut down. But again, when public sector shuts these down, they usually merge these with something else. So, एक का liability एक pocket से दूसरी pocket में. So, I don't even see that as shutting down. Air India should have been shut down a long time back if it was run on financial logic. But it does not run on financial logic. It has the deepest pockets in the whole world, at least in the whole country, because it has the pockets of Government of India, and Government of India is a sovereign with the sovereign right to tax us. So Government of India can keep funding it. But again, if you make a graveyard of airlines in India, private airlines in India, it will be a very large one. And right now I'm confining myself to the airlines post-economic reform, that is airlines since private aviation was allowed. If I also count the airlines, private airlines that existed before Air India was nationalized, Air India used to be Tata run airline earlier, before it was nationalized or before airline business was nationalized, then the list will be even larger. Around the world, there is no great shame about airlines shutting down. In New York, if you are a little bit older, even if not as old as me, you might remember from your earlier visits to New York, to Manhattan, that one of the landmarks, the great landmarks of Manhattan as you look towards the Grand Central Station, used to be the Pan Am building. In the course of time, Pan Am shut down. Pan Am was the biggest airline, right? It shut down. Who had imagined Pan Am would shut down? And that building then became MetLife building. MetLife is an insurance company. So airlines shut down across the world. BOAC, which was the British official flag carrier, Swiss Air, which was Switzerland's flag carrier. Today, Swiss, which runs to Switzerland, which is like Switzerland's airline, is owned by Lufthansa. So all these airlines have shut down. What is the big deal? The big deal is not airlines shutting down. The big deal is an airline shut down and bankrupted coming back. That is what's happening in India, or that is what is promised to happen in India. So Jet Airways, which died about 2.5 years back, and in very bad situation with lots and lots of liabilities to all kinds of creditors, from banks to suppliers to those who had leased aircraft to it, to those it had ordered aircraft with. Also, most importantly, to its employees, not just salaries, statutory dues, all kinds of things, right? That airline had shut down. That airline is now being revived because a very interesting and intriguing consortium of investors have bought into it. They bought into it for very little through NCLT process, that is the National Company Law Tribunal process, basically through the bankruptcy process, just over 1,000 crore rupees payable over 3-4 years. So this company owed the banks, suppliers, creditors upwards of 8,000 crores. So the haircut, as they call it, is like 90 plus percent. So this haircut is like a mundan, right? It's like a tonsuring, जैसे तिरुपति में होता है जाके. But still, like you have a tonsuring, a little tuft is left, right? एक चुटिया थोड़ी सी बचती है. That's how this bankruptcy process has gone through. But who puts money in a dead airline, and who then commits to restarting that airline? Now, the reason also I talk about this today, that today is also when the financial bids, it was the last day for submitting financial bids for Air India. And looks like, as I was starting this, I saw on my TV screens, the Tata Group has submitted a bid. Now, Tata Group has a bunch of other airlines. They have Air Vistara, they have Air Asia, so they might be a fit for them to merge one with the other. We'll see how this works out, and I'm hoping that this time government of India succeeds in selling this airline, because if they sell this airline, they will at least plug one breach that constantly leaks money in their system, that is Air India. Why should government be running airlines? Anyway, so that is on a day when that's going out, we again have stories that Jet Airways is going to be revived, except that its date of revival in terms of the date of its resumption of services has now been put off by another quarter. So it's the fourth postponement. Now it is planned that by March of next year, it will take off with its first flights after the shutdown. If that happens, it will be quite an incredible situation, that is sold out airline, that a bankrupted airline comes back. That doesn't happen. You see, all the airlines which have shut down in India over time, they have never come back. In fact, some of the airlines in India actually got bankrupted because they bought into already near bankrupt airlines, or airlines which should have been bankrupt. So see, in go-go times, everybody makes punts and everybody gambles. So in go-go times for India's economy, global economy, India's aviation, both Naresh Goyal and Vijay Mallya, that is the owners of Jet Airways and Kingfisher, they got into a big competition who will be the big boy of Indian aviation, and both then thought that two other companies which were doing badly, that is Sahara and Deccan, those were available for sale. So one way of scaling up is to acquire a running business. Except when you say an airline is running business, an airline is leaking losses all over the place, leaking money all over the place and building up losses, then you're not buying a running business, you are probably buying a ruined business. So Jet bought into Sahara and Kingfisher bought into Deccan. So both those entrepreneurs, the Sahara Group as well as Captain Gopinath, they cashed out with their bankrupted airlines, effectively bankrupted airlines that were running up losses, and both Naresh Goyal, that is Jet, and Vijay Mallya, that's Kingfisher, they built up huge liabilities and debt, because each one was scared that if I don't buy an airline and the other guy buys an airline, the other guy will become bigger and take more market share. So us chakkar mein both sank. So the weight of those two airlines took these down. In this situation, what kind of a genius comes and says, I will revive an airline? Now, I can understand the logic, some part of the logic. And that part of the logic is that Jet Airways still is a very strong brand. It was the strongest aviation brand in India. It had a very strong and very valuable customer loyalty program, frequent flyer program, which actually has been sold now. It's now owned by another company in the Gulf. But it had strong customer loyalty and it had a big name. But that customer loyalty was built at a big cost, at incredible service, incredible discipline, punctuality. It was the best airline without a doubt in whatever level or scale of service. Now, can somebody who comes in now replicate it? And if you replicate it, what kind of money will it take? And even if you bring in some bit of money, who will you be competing? Will you then be able to compete with a sort of re-energized Tata Group with its multiple airlines, Indigo and say SpiceJet, etc., ruling the budget sector, and then also Go Air somewhere there? So all those are issues that are for aviation experts to answer. I, on the other hand, looked at in some detail at people who are buying into Jet Airways, and that is the most interesting part and sort of the intriguing parts. So one of them, the prime mover, is somebody called Murarilal Jalan. Now, if you Google Murarilal Jalan, you will not find very much on him. All I can find is that he's somebody who's mostly failed in any business he started. He's a businessman from Kolkata originally, as a lot of the Marwadi families do. Traded in paper, that didn't work too much, but bought a paper mill, Kanoi paper mill, something we used to be familiar with many decades ago. Then that got into environmental trouble, that business did not work, then got into real estate, some other businesses, moved to Dubai, did some stuff there. That building business in Dubai also did not work too well. Then set up a company with Patanjali for distributing Patanjali products. That company, that is Baba Ramdev's company, that company also does not seem to have done anything. So this consistent record of failure, and then he discovers some kind of an El Dorado, and that is in Uzbekistan and Russia. Uzbekistan, as you know, is a former Soviet republic. It became an independent sovereign republic in 1991 as the old Soviet Union broke down. Now, it's around Tashkent and in Uzbekistan that Sudhir Jalan has large businesses and large real estate developments. I believe, from whatever I read, that he is he enjoys quite a clout in Uzbekistan. In fact, if you go to his Twitter handle, which I did, it has very few tweets. He mainly tweets good wishes on various festivals. The first real tweet I see from him goes back to the day that Neeraj Chopra won his gold medal and congratulates him. Otherwise, it's Janmashtami ki badhai, it is Ganesh Chaturthi ki badhai, stuff like that. Again, interestingly, he follows only one Twitter handle, that is kun.uz. UZ is for Uzbekistan. And I checked, kun.uz is for Kun, which is one of the news and current affairs websites of Uzbekistan. So that's the only one he follows, and a whole bunch of people follow him. None of the names looks familiar to me. Interestingly, most of them sound like or read like Uzbek or Russian names. So he's very much somebody who looks like he's rooted in Russia and former Russian or former Soviet republics. His partner, or the consortium that is formed, is with a firm called Kalrock Advisors. Now, Kalrock again is not a very prominent private equity company or very prominent finance company. It is an advisory. It is an advisory run by a man, headed by a man called Florian Fritsch. Florian Fritsch is a German, but again, if you research him, different descriptions come up, including that he used to be a racing car driver, had an accident, then stopped car racing, then gone into businesses, then made some good investments and made a bit of money, including some investment with Arnold Schwarzenegger's nephew, and he's got money and he also arranges funds to be invested. Now, a lot of his investments, again, if I read his website, sound like very adventurous investments, and he says that. So, in fact, if you go to his website, as you open his website homepage, you see a quote. It pops out at you, and I will read that quote to you. Maybe some of you will figure out who this is from, but I will tell you. The quote is, quote, "The greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence. It is to act with yesterday's logic." Hello, you're looking at an airline that failed, right? Turbulence and airlines go together. This airline could not survive a turbulence, maybe that it created itself. It created a perfect storm for itself and did not survive it. Now you are moving it, following the same logic, to buy that airline. Now, are you doing it with yesterday's logic? That is, airline was very successful and a leading company, or are you doing it with tomorrow's logic? That is not something we know. But it's interesting that this website, like its guiding principle or guiding motto, has this quote from Peter Drucker, management guru, who else? So this quote is from Peter Drucker. The other thing that I find very interesting about this company is that in their statement of purpose, they say the first line is, this world is passing through an era of VUCA. VUCA, V-U-C-A. What is VUCA? I've heard this for the first time. But VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. Jet Airways shut down for more than 2 years. It has everything. It faces volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. And ambiguity is also Indian law and Indian regulation and stuff like that. For example, one big question is that now that they revived the company with the same brand name, do they get the rights? Do they inherit the rights to slots, to parking slots? How many flights, for example, between Delhi and Mumbai? Because that is the big cash cow sector in India. Now, regulators, including the Ministry of Civil Aviation, have been saying that, look, you can't just hoard your sites. If an airline shuts down, we give those slots away to others, and slots are given away to others. We can't take them back and give them to you. And yet, Carlrock has advised Muralilal Jalan to get into this business. So maybe it is the other way around, because Carlrock also says that this VUCA situation, that is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, it also creates special situations, opportunities. So you have to be, I suppose, quite adventurous to get into an area like that. You have to be very adventurous to start an airline. You have to be doubly adventurous to start an airline and then buy another airline. And you have to be several times more adventurous to pick up a dead airline and then put in money to revive it. That's the reason I said this is the case of ye duniya oot patanga.